All right, so if you're a Jags fan or just an NFL draft enjoyer, we have learned one thing. We know something for sure. James Gladstone is a menace. Is a problem. Whether that's good or bad, we don't know yet, all right? Okay, we know that Gladstone had a big swing last year with Travis Hunter, and the jury's still out on that, all right? It's not looking so great, but the jury is still out on him being this kind of generational two-way talent. Let's look at this draft, which has been, if the NFL draft is like a Marvel movie, then James Gladstone is Ultron. He doesn't care about the rest of us, or us mortal humans who don't know who Z.J. Williams is. Look through it then. So Borkercher, I really liked Borkercher, right? Underutilized in the Texas A&M offense. Didn't lose a rep at the Senior Bowl, right? Looked like a natural receiver. He's got smooth hands. He can block a little bit too. He's got good size on him, but he's older. You weren't really sure if he was even the best tight end in that Texas A&M offense. They have a Dutch dude. I remember he wore orange cleats. He's a pretty good player too. So this, for me, is a reach, but there's the added context, obviously. It was really important for teams to be really big and versatile on offense in terms of their personnel. And so tight ends were at a premium. So did Gladstone start the run on tight ends? When you look at the draft order, right, Gladstone can't really take claim to fame that he started the run on tight ends, so he had to pick Borkercher. I mean, the Eagles did when they picked Eli Stowers at 54, right? And then the Jaguars hopped on the tight end train right after that and kind of started the run on tight ends. And then Houston got Marlon Klein, and then the Rams got Max Clare. But the thing is, Eli Stowers, that was more near his normal, media consensus to be picked at 54. And 56 for Nate Borkercher, I mean, it's one of those things where both things are true. It's a reach, but there's added context, and they clearly really liked him, all right? But then you go to pick number 3. And, in all of these, I think most of these picks, it's just, I don't think it's as egregious as it might have seemed at the time watching the draft when you look back on it. But it's just kind of slight reaches for a lot of position. So Albert Regis, I think his name is. I liked both of the Texas A&M tight ends. I had them more, later into round 3, early round 4. It's a little bit of a reach for me. I thought the other Texas A&M defensive tackle was a little bit more of a pass rushing upside, and Regis was a little bit more of a consistent run stopper, and he was really good at the Shrine Bowl. Regis is a good player. Was he in the top 100 for me? No, but they're going to reach for their guys, which is what Gladstone is determined to doing. Pregnon and his value is what's up next to pick 88, so right after that. And this saves their draft in a lot of media analysis eyes, and, it's not any different for me. I thought Pregnon could have gone a lot earlier. I thought he might have been the one to sneak into that, like, Kalen Rutledge spot where you're like a late first rounder, early second rounder. I'm not sure why Pregnon fell to 88 for some teams. I haven't looked around for that kind of information yet. But, to give credit, so far, if you're judging the Jaguars draft, I think you got a medium, 2 small reaches in Regis and in Borkercher, and then a great value pick in Pregnon, according to kind of the media consensus, and my thoughts lined up with that as well. Jalen Husky, another one that I thought was a really good player. He was slightly not in the top 100 for me. I thought he was more of a, round 5 and 6 guy. He was a converted corner. He's very fluid. He's a very physical player. He's a very instinctive player. I didn't think that Maryland defense was any good. And there were times where, you'd watch Maryland defense and plays and series would go by and he wouldn't make a big impact on every given drive like a lot of your top defenders do, right? And so that's another one that's a slight reach in my eyes. And the same thing with Wesley Williams. He's going to have some immediate special teams upside too, because this dude is great in pursuit. He's very fluid. He's big, strong, athletic, and obviously everyone is who's getting drafted. But Wesley Williams has great play speed, all right? But I didn't think he was like the best edge. I thought he was a little light against the run game. I thought he wasn't as polished in his pass rush moves as some of the better pass rushers. I think he was kind of caught in no man's land. I liked the other defensive end a little more in terms of like being a bookend, but I did see the value in Wesley Williams as just a rangy, speedier defender on the field. He scraped and made a lot more tackles than the other defensive end did, but he didn't get to the quarterback as well as the other. I think it was Vincent Anthony was the other Duke kid. So again, slight reach. Tanner Kudzall, especially given how popular tight ends were in this draft. Now, teams favored the blocking tight ends a lot more than they favored the receiving tight ends, who went a lot later, right? I think they clearly have less value to NFL teams right now if you can't put your hand in the dirt and block. But Tanner Kudzall is a really good player. Red zone threat. I'm okay with that pick there, 164. If you really liked him, I'm good with that one. Josh Cameron, I'm okay with that one too. He gives you value as a returner. He's not my cup of tea as a receiver. I'm from the old school style of when I'm looking at receivers, I grew up with Devontae Adams, and OBJ, and Antonio Brown, and it was just separator. It wasn't necessarily like the biggest, strongest athlete is your best receiver. It was more like your fluid, agile, can't be caught guys are your best dudes. And so Josh Cameron, inside the top 200, I wouldn't have been, if Josh Cameron didn't get picked, I wouldn't have been like, oh my gosh, like nobody picked Josh Cameron? Like, what are we doing? But I do see the value of him as a player, especially given that he has a lot of return experience. And I think the new dynamic kickoff, I was trying to remember the silly name they had for it, actually goes in well with his return skills, because you don't necessarily want just like a blazer back there anymore. You want somebody who has a little more size on them, because you're going to have to break a tackle so quickly and you're not getting up to speed, right? And I feel like that suits really well with Josh Cameron's skills. CJ Williams, I think, is the pick that stamped it for people who were on looking to the Jaguars draft of, okay, you're kind of making fans mad there, because fans, especially fans of the draft who's been looking at players for months, right? Hours every day for 4 or 5 months, and you never once heard about CJ Williams. And here he is at pick 203 when there's a bunch of guys with bigger names on the board. And CJ Williams, this dude's not going to get picked. If they don't pick him at 203, they could easily sign him as an undrafted free agent. And I guess picking him, maybe that gives you I'm not an expert on contracts, and if it gives you a roster advantage. But CJ Williams, to me, I see what the Jags are thinking. They're betting on CJ Williams, kind of like they're betting on Borkercher, that they were underutilized in their offense, Texas A&M, because I don't think their quarterback was that good of a passer, and CJ Williams, because I don't think Sanford was that good of a team and that good of an offense. And he seems like a good player. I didn't know him at all when they picked him. And I've done some research on him afterwards, tried to watch some stuff, and I see some positives. I'm not like this dude sucks. But yeah, I definitely could have gone undrafted. Zach Dufree, some good run stopping ability. He's got a lot of strength. I don't think he's exactly what the NFL is looking for in DNs, with a little bit. He's not as powerful as an athlete. He's not going to be as fast. He's not going to have the arm length, which is why he's the 7th round pick. But it's the 7th round, and I think the 7th round, you let teams off the hook. Again, like CJ Williams, Zach Dufree could have been undrafted, and no one would have batted an eye, right? I like the pick of Parker Hughes more than Zach Dufree or CJ Williams. I think Parker Hughes is one of those pick 240, pure special teams, linebacker with a bunch of tackles, who was a team captain, who ran some ridiculous, like a 4.4, like a 4.39. The 40 basically got him drafted. And he's going to have a bunch of he's going to be on your punt team immediately. He's going to be on your kickoff team. He's going to be kickoff return team. All the teams. So I like the Parker Hughes pick. That's fine. If I had to give a grade, an overall grade, which I think is a kind of a tired exercise, but it is kind of fun. That's why people keep doing it. To me, I'd be a little nicer to some people. I would just give it a C. Like, it's just, you don't look at this list and think, oh, there's no good football players here. Like, I liked a lot of these guys. I just think the value wasn't great. And value does matter. You know, if you hit on all the picks and they all become Hall of Famers, so, okay, it's cool. But value does matter because we see these veterans get traded for third-round pick, fourth-round pick. And if you're just throwing those picks away with guys you reach on and they don't hit, like, you know, sometimes draft picks, it feels like they're so important and valuable, and sometimes they're just, teams are throwing them away, throwing them down the drain. And I think it makes fans very frustrated. All right, there was a couple undrafted free agents too. Let's just leave it with this. Stroman out of Notre Dame, wasn't a huge fan. I don't think he wasn't starting at the end of the season, but he seemed like a really good dude, Notre Dame player, coach. I've seen Marcus Freeman speak highly of him. DeGiorgio out of UCLA. I think he's good for his versatility. He played guard and tackle. He just wasn't moving people enough in the run game for me when I watched him. And if you're not doing that, then you got to be a really good pass pro dude. And I don't necessarily think he was that either, which is why he's undrafted. But I can see why would bring him in. My favorite undrafted free agent, I had Devon Marshall with a late day 3 grade. I love Devon Marshall. Part of that is because he's, local school, lived near NC State, right? And also, he just had a bunch of production. He had ball skills. I'm pretty sure he went to the Shrine Bowl, right? I think he played really well. I like Devon Marshall, so I love that undrafted free agent signing for NC State. Some of these 7th-round picks, I'm pretty sure teams are calling beforehand, and you make like kind of undrafted free agents like a verbal agreement. Because some of these undrafted free agents like a Devon Marshall are getting a bunch of guaranteed money just as much as a 6th-rounder, right? So that's another thing to consider. When you're a fan of your team and you're looking to see you add talent, like the undrafted free agents, pretty good place to add. Jamari Taylor, solid running back, kind of a straightforward, no-nonsense runner, had a little bit of power. Joey Aguilar, I had a draftable grade on. I liked him. I liked how he got through the progressions. I thought he had some nice zip in his arm. He has a bunch of starts. He's a guy, if he was drafted in round 6 or 7, I would have thought good on that team and not questioned it at all. So that's good to bring him in as an undrafted free agent. Wortham, out of Montana. He's like a slot receiver. He's a fan favorite. If he can make the practice squad and, he's end up playing in a week 16, 17 game, that would be cool. I think fans will really get a kick out of him, but I just think he's big enough for what the NFL wants to be right now.